watching HeadRoom's coverage of CanJam 2010 at Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, live here on headphone.com.
The table right now is the JH16. It's the world's first 8-driver 3-way earpiece, 4 lows, 2 mids, 2 highs, accurate out to 20 hertz, 10 dB bump at 50 hertz, back to accurate by 125 in the low mid, the masking frequencies. Quickly becoming the industry standard for touring. We've got Linkin Park, Aerosmith, Godsmack, Disturbed, Mary J. Blige, Avenged Sevenfold, My Bloody Valentine, is that the name of that band?
Yeah.
Bullet for My Valentine. I'm old. They're young. But anyway, so, you know, we're quickly taking over the pro market and all the audiophiles and music, you know, people enjoy music, really like it because it sounds like the big speakers in a recording studio. You get out of it exactly what you put into it, but it's got nice punch in the bottom end. You get excitement, you know, the way that the mixdown engineer wanted it.
How would you differentiate the 13 Pro and the 16 Pro?
13 Pro and the 16 Pro. The 13 is probably the most balanced earpiece I've ever built, very detailed. I kind of look at the 13 as like a near-field reference monitor when you're in the studio. You want something that's very accurate with like a nice musical bottom, but not a powerful, you know, overpowering bass. And so that's pretty much it. It's the most balanced reference quality earpiece I think I've ever built. You hear more detail in that than anything. The 16 is kind of like a 13 with a little bit of steroids. It's got more hit on the bottom. Still the same mids and highs, but it's definitely got more impact, more excitement. It's kind of, I compare them. The 13s are the near fields that you mix down on, and the 16s are the big speakers in the recording studio that when people come in, you want them to hear the excitement of what you've been doing. So
that's a good way to look at it.
And we were talking earlier, you mentioned that the 13 Pros and the 16 Pros really share very little in common in terms of their build methodology.
Yeah, because the 13 Pro is actually a 2-bore earpiece. There's 6 drivers, so you have the lows and the mids on one soundboard, and then you have the highs on a separate soundboard, which makes it a lot easier to put in time and phase. Now the 16, because of the 8 drivers, we had to put the 4 low drivers on one tube, we had to put the dual mids on a single tube, and we had to put the highs on a single tube, which meant that I had to redesign the mid and the high driver with, instead of having an external damper, it actually had to have the damper put in the spout so we could use the smaller tubes to fit it into each ear canal. And then tuning 3 bores was a lot more of a challenge to make it in time and phase, so it took a while. Actually took almost 11 months to get the 16 dialed in exactly where I wanted it. Went through probably 5 different crossover changes and timelines before we actually got it.
So you did pretty close to a year R&D on that before you released it.
Absolutely. Then I had 18 months R&D on the components that was in the 13. So, you know, there's basically 15 years of R&D of what I've been doing all my career to get to the 16.
Get to this point.
You know.
And are both of those available now?
Both of them are available and shipping now.
And what are the price points on those two?
$1149 on the 16, $1099 on the 13.
And Jerry, tell us a little bit about the DSP amps that you're making for the 13 and 16 Pro.
The 3A is a 3-way active DSP amplifier, and what it is that instead of having the passive crossover in the earpiece, the crossover is actually in the belt pack. And what that allows me to do is build a perfect earpiece. The time and phase between the crossover points is perfect, and any little subtle equalization that I want to do on each band I can do. I've got multiple layers of equalization in time. I also am making the crossover points between the components much steeper and much more accurate because I'm not using passive components. I can control exactly where I want the crossover to overlap, and also this earpiece is going out to 23K before the top end rolls down, because when I tell that high driver that's in the 13 and the 16 to go out there, it just mechanically it can do it. Nothing else can do that, right? So basically we build a perfect earpiece, but it's matched to the amp. So the amp is matched to the earpiece, it's tuned to the earpiece. And the other thing that's kind of cool about the 3A is that if you want a natural bass, it's got a separate volume control just for the low sub amp basically. And for every half dB that we increase the low sub amp, we correct the time and phase as it goes up. So you can have it at 0 or plus 14 dB the amount of sub. And it's not a bass boost, it's actually turning the low frequency amp up and keeping it in time and phase as it comes up.
Right. Well, we love your products at HeadRoom. You know that we've always been.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, guys.
It's always
Appreciate it.
you guys dominate the category. So pleasure seeing you again,
Thanks,
Jerry.
George. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
It's nice meeting you.
It
Thanks
was
a lot.
nice to meet you too. Thank you.